Donald Trump launched an unjustified, illegal, and immoral war against Iran to distract from the Epstein files. And now that Trump's war has gone so badly, he's trying to distract us from the distraction itself. But as we've said so many times, Trump is clearly in cognitive and physical decline. He and the rest of his administration, packed with incompetence and cronies, can't spin their way out of this. And Trump certainly can't, because he's too busy slurring his words and nodding off. That's exactly what we saw today when he held a meeting at the White House that was supposed to be about artificial intelligence. Instead, he turned it into a rambling, incoherent discussion about Iran, one that went completely off the rails because he could barely speak and then appeared to fall asleep. But this all started with the spin attempt from Caroline Leavitt on CNN, trying to obscure the reality that 6 American soldiers lost their lives because the president will do whatever Israel asks of him. That's where I want to begin, with Caitlin Collins triggering a full-on Caroline Leavitt meltdown over Trump's so-called distraction war before we get to the slurring, sleepy president and the broader picture of his unraveling.
You just mentioned that the president is going to attend the dignified transfer for these families. Given what Secretary Hegseth said this morning, is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what these...
Secretary Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not... We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more.
Drones get through or tragic things happen. It's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad.
Yeah,
as you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot, standing alongside the secretary at the Pentagon this morning, again expressing his condolences to these families. And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please,
that's not making the president look bad. That's showcasing that.
We expect you to cover that as you should. We expect you to cover that as you should, Caitlin. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad. That is an objectable fact.
I don't think covering troop deaths is trying to make
if you're trying to argue right now that CNN's overwhelming coverage is not negative of President Donald Trump, I think the American people would tend to agree, and your ratings would tend to disagree with that as well. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. On the school strike.
Is Caroline Leavitt upset that Caitlin Collins is simply doing her job? It certainly seems like Leavitt is more outraged that someone dared to ask about 6 lost American lives, 6 fallen soldiers, than she is about the fact that those lives were actually lost. But that's this administration. Indifferent. Cold. Always eager to play the victim, even when they're the ones causing the harm. And Donald Trump himself told you why that harm is happening. When pressed for a real answer, he actually blurted it out before drifting into another slurred, meandering spiral. The one clear statement he managed to deliver about why we went to war was this: for years, they've killed our people and people all over the world. And if we hadn't done it first, they would have done it to Israel and then taken a shot at us if they could. It's Israel. It's Israel. That's the justification. That's the reason given for entering a war with Iran, because of Israel. As Chris Van Hollen put it, Benjamin Netanyahu may have finally found a president willing or susceptible enough to be drawn into the conflict he has long advocated. A confrontation with Iran is something Netanyahu has supported and pushed for throughout much of his political career. And now, critics argue, Trump appears willing to risk American lives and broader regional stability in alignment with that agenda. The reported political influence of major donors, including Miriam Adelson, has also drawn scrutiny and debate. Questions about money, influence, and foreign policy decisions are serious ones, and they deserve serious answers. What we're left with is a deeply polarized moment. Accusations of manipulation, concerns about presidential fitness, fears of escalating war, and 6 American lives lost. Those aren't small matters. They demand accountability, clarity, and leadership, not deflection, not outrage at journalists for asking questions, and not slogans meant to drown out legitimate concerns.
They've been killing our people and killing people from all over the world, and I think we have great support. And I think if we didn't do it first, they would have done it to Israel and give us a shot if that was possible. CEO of Oracle, Clay Moosquark. Many Americans are still concerned that the massive energy demand from AI data centers could drive up their electricity bills in the future, and we understand that. By 2035, energy demand is expected to more than triple. Can you believe it? A lot of it is AI, and it's also all these big plants that are being built all over the country there. So your electric bills will actually come down. It'll take a little while, but not long.
There was a lot of slurring, a lot of mispronouncing from the President of the United States, who to many watching appears to be in serious cognitive decline. At this point, it's hard for critics to describe it any other way. But it didn't stop there. After Donald Trump struggled through, or rather failed to get through, what should have been straightforward remarks, after battling what some mockingly call the greatest challenge of this presidency, basic English, the situation took another turn. The meeting at the White House was supposed to focus on artificial intelligence, a rapidly expanding industry that many Americans worry is reshaping the workforce and driving up energy demands nationwide. Instead of leading a substantive discussion on AI policy, Trump appeared disengaged. Critics say he looked visibly bored. And at one point, he seemed to nod off. For a moment meant to project strength and command over one of the most important technological shifts of our time, what viewers saw instead was distraction, and according to detractors, detachment.
Anywhere on the planet. And today we recognize that building the future requires massive amounts of reliable energy. And I'm grateful to you, Mr. President, for acting so decisively to ensure that the growing demands of energy that we have are never passed to the American households.
Journalist Aaron Rupar writes, Trump's face is drooping and his eyes are closed.
That, critics argue, is the state of the country and the government right now. In their view, it perfectly captures the moment. Donald Trump appearing disengaged, even asleep at the wheel, while loyal supporters continue insisting he's in peak physical condition, running marathons, staying up into the early morning hours, sharper than ever. Meanwhile, powerful tech executives, some of whom publicly backed his return to office, openly discuss how artificial intelligence could replace jobs and generate enormous profits. And at the White House, the president alternates, according to critics, between pursuing a controversial foreign policy agenda and seeming detached during major policy discussions. The accusations go even further. Some claim foreign influence, particularly from Israel, is shaping U.S. decision-making. Others argue that major figures in Silicon Valley are consolidating power behind the scenes. Names like J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk are frequently invoked by critics who believe elements of the federal government are being reshaped in ways that benefit wealthy donors and tech interests through deregulation, tax policy, defense contracts, and expanded AI and surveillance funding. Whether one agrees with that framing or not, it reflects a growing anxiety among parts of the public, fears about executive power, corporate influence, foreign policy entanglements, and the direction of emerging technologies. And the turbulence didn't stop with the president. Kristi Noem also faced sharp questioning before Congress, including renewed scrutiny over personal controversies. According to observers, the exchange only intensified concerns about credibility and transparency within the administration. For many Americans watching, the broader picture feels unsettled politically, economically, and institutionally. And that sense of instability is what's driving so much of the heated rhetoric surrounding this moment.
According to the Wall Street Journal, you and Mr. L have a close relationship that has made President Trump, quote, uncomfortable. The president reportedly denounced Corey Lewandowski as your chief of staff due to reports of a romantic relationship between the two of you. So instead, you designated him as a special government and employee, a position he has had well beyond the allowed 130 days and requires him to disclose if he is making money off of his position. Trump knows that this guy is shady. Corey has a decades-long record of physical battery, sexual harassment, illegal lobbying for a Venezuelan oil company, and bringing a loaded gun into a federal building. Despite being fired or removed from virtually every position he has ever held due to misconduct, he now wields unchecked, unconfirmed, undisclosed power over your department. This person has no experience running anything close to Department of Homeland Security or even advising someone in your position. He is unqualified, which again has left my constituents and I wondering why he is your top official. So, Secretary Noem, at any time during your tenure as Director of Department of Homeland Security, have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee today.
Reclaiming
and
my
ma'am,
time.
one thing that I would tell you is that he is a special government employee who works for the White House. There are thousands of them in the federal government.
So reclaiming
and
my
is
time,
an advisor,
Secretary, it is
and has
okay for
no,
you to be
no
offended
authority
by
to
the
be
question.
making any
It is
decisions.
okay for you to
has
be
no
offended
authority
by the
to
question.
Be making
but it
decisions
is also a
and putting
real
up your
question.
position. So what I would say
and
to
you should be able to
is
answer
that
the question.
what we do at the Department of Homeland Security every single
and without
day,
any hesitation,
every single day is to protect
if
this
someone
country
is
and
asking
to make
if
decisions.
you or any federal official is sleeping with their subordinate, that should be the easiest. You should be wanting to answer that question.
Is garbage?
Because it is not about
It is
your sex
offensive
life.
that you have brought
It is
that up.
about your
So
judgment.
that kind of garbage
It is
has
about
been refuted
reclaiming
for
my
years,
time so
and
that
you
I
need
can
to
hear myself.
recognize-
Time belongs to the gentlelady from California, but it'd be nice if you would let her respond.
I will. I want to let you know it is about your judgment and decision-making. It is about the 260,000 employees that work under you that want to make sure that you are giving information and making decisions clearly. That work under you, that want to make sure that you are giving information and making decisions clearly. It is about conflict of interest.
You call it tabloid gossip. But when there's a bed in the back of a $90 million government plane paid for by taxpayers and it's being used for official operations like deportations, Congress has every right to ask questions. That's oversight. That's literally their job. What's not part of the job description, critics argue, is whatever may be happening in the back of that aircraft on the public's dime. And that frustration reflects a broader accusation aimed at this administration, that it has taken every dollar and every ounce of power it could and operated with little regard for accountability. Kristi Noem has dismissed some of the scrutiny as sensationalism, but members of Congress pressing her for answers would say they're doing exactly what voters sent them there to do. And yes, the tone right now isn't exactly upbeat, but there are political developments that some see as momentum shifting. Supporters point to recent Democratic wins and moments that have clearly irritated Donald Trump, arguing they signal broader changes ahead. There's growing belief in some circles that Democrats could not only compete for the House and Senate, but potentially flip seats in places that once seemed out of reach. Whether that optimism materializes remains to be seen. But the energy is there. The frustration is there. And the debate over accountability, over ethics, spending, executive power, and influence isn't going away. If you want to keep following these developments and support independent political commentary, you know what to do. Subscribe, like the video, and join the conversation. Stay engaged. Stay vocal. And until next time, we'll see you soon.